Dear teachers, thank you for taking the time to attend this session on school-related gender-based violence or SRGBV. Here, we will share information and ideas on how to prevent and eliminate SRGBV. Why it is important to focus on SRGBV? When the United Nations adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in September 2015, it is committed to strive for a world guided by human rights, a world that is just, equitable and inclusive, and a world that is free from fear and violence. Agenda 2030 places gender equality and inclusive and equitable quality education at the heart of its concerns. It addresses violence against girls and boys as a cross-cutting concern, and it includes concrete commitments under a number of goals and targets. In particular, under Goal 4 on inclusive and equitable quality education, the agenda highlights the importance of knowledge and skills on human rights and the promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, the provision of child, disability and gender-sensitive education facilities, and safe, non-violent, inclusive and effective learning environments for all. Target 4A. Quality education is critical to development both of societies and of individuals, and it helps pave the way to a successful and productive future. When all children have access to a quality education rooted in human rights and gender equality, it creates a ripple effect that influences generations to come. In keeping with the provisions of the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, corporal punishment could be classified as physical punishment, mental harassment, and discrimination. The RTE Act 2009, which came into force with effect from 1st April 2010, prohibits physical punishment and mental harassment under Section 17(1), and it's a punishable offence under Section 17(2). These provisions read as follows. 17. Provision of physical punishment and mental harassment to child. 1. No child shall be subjected to physical punishment or mental harassment. 2. Whoever contravenes the provisions of subsection 1 shall be liable to disciplinary action under the service rules applicable to such person. We are talking about violence. Globally, an estimated 246 million children experience violence in and around school every year, and its impact causes low attendance, lower academic results, and higher dropout rates. Here are some examples of SRGBV that have been reported in the news. For millions of children and young people across the world, the school environment is not as safe and supportive as it should be. Instead, school days are marred by gender-based violence, which includes physical, verbal, and sexual harassment, bullying, sexual abuse, and corporal punishment. Situations of conflict, displacement, and poverty exacerbate the risks of gender-based violence. Children are subject to corporal punishment in schools, institutions meant for care and protection of children, such as hostels, orphanages, ashram shalas, and juvenile homes, and even in the family setting. A study, Child Abuse in India 2007, by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, found that 69% of children reported having been physically abused. Every 2 out of 3 school children reported facing corporal punishment. Going ahead, we will focus on what constitutes SRGBV, how prevalent it is, and how it affects students. We will also highlight our social and legal responsibility as teachers to prevent violence in our school and respond sensitively and effectively to incidents of SRGBV. To understand the reasons and dynamics of SRGBV, we need to be clear about the following concepts. 1. Sex refers to the biological and physiological characteristics of a person. It is reflected on our birth certificates, usually as male or female. 2. Gender is a social construct. It is a set of attributes associated with the sex of a person. Different human qualities and behavior have been labeled as masculine or feminine, and a person is supposed to behave in a manner that matches their sex. The terms girl, boy, woman, and man refer to the gender of a person. 3. Gender identity is a person's sense of femaleness or maleness. It generally matches the sex of the person, but it may not. When it does not, the person is said to have a transgender identity. Such a person may have a male body, but feel that they are female inside, or vice versa. 4. Gender role is a social concept where the people around us, in the family, neighborhood, school, friends, and media, tell us what tasks and activities we should or we should not do depending on our sex. The last picture on this slide shows a girl breaking these stereotypes by wrestling with a man. What do we understand by SRGBV? As per UNESCO, school-based violence refers to all forms of violence, including the fear of violence that occurs in educational contexts, including the school premises, on the journey to and from school, and in emergency situations, which result in or are likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm of children. School-related gender-based violence is defined as acts or threats of sexual, physical, or psychological violence occurring in and around schools perpetuated as a result of gender norms and stereotypes and enforced by unequal power dynamics. People who hold on to such norms often perpetrate violence on those individuals who do not conform to society's fixed norms about the way they should dress, behave, or the kind of work they should do based on their sex and gender. Violence based on sexual orientation and gender identity is also called homophobic violence. Sexual orientation refers to the romantic attraction one feels towards another person. Example, heterosexual. Person is attracted towards a person whose sex is different. Homosexual. Person is attracted towards a person of the same sex. Gender identity is an inner sense of being a girl or a boy. It may or may not match with the biological sex of the person. People from sexual minorities often face violence because of their orientation and expression of their identity. This happens in schools as well. We will go through some reports that highlight various types of violence later in this session. Where can gender-based violence happen? Gender-based violence or GBV can occur in and around schools as well as on the way to or from schools or in the community that the child lives in. It can be physical, psychological, or sexual. An example is when a student is taunted because of his physical looks. At home, it can be a wife beating or discrimination against the girl child. When the community does not stop child marriage, it is allowing gender-based violence to happen on the child, usually a girl. Social media, email, and mobile phones are platforms where violence such as cyberbullying, stalking, and harassment can happen. Cyber refers to the world created by the internet. Cyberbullying includes using objectionable pictures of friends on social media or sending vulgar messages or making obscene calls. An example of cyberbullying is when a boy is called gay by a girl online because he has started to wear his hair long. Soon several friends join the girl and begin to ridicule him. Where inside a school can gender-based violence happen? SRGBV incidents usually happen in unsupervised spaces within school buildings. These may be toilets, playgrounds, where children are allowed to play unsupervised, isolated, unlit rooms, empty or dark hallways, and stairwells, and any other such places where a student could be subject to violence by another student or adult without others noticing it. It is important to note that different power relations occur in different spaces. For instance, while girls and boys are mostly respectful of each other in a classroom, as both are in large numbers, a single girl on the playfield or in the corridor coming across a group of boys may feel vulnerable and vice versa. Similarly, younger children feel safe in an assembly but may feel vulnerable when coming across a senior boy near a toilet. Same applies to staff-student dynamics. The context, classroom, corridor, playground or bus can change the feeling of power, safety and vulnerability. When the violence is perpetrated by a person with authority, it can also happen in the classroom in the presence of others. What are the types of gender-based violence? There are 3 types of gender-based violence: physical, psychological, and sexual. 1. Physical violence is the use of physical force with the intention to hurt. It includes corporal punishment and physical bullying. Corporal punishment is when physical force is used to cause some degree of pain or discomfort. It is often used to punish poor academic performance or misbehavior. It could involve hitting, kicking, pinching, pulling hair, or forcing students to stay in uncomfortable positions. Bullying is aggressive behavior that is intentional, planned, and involves the use of power or strength to harm or frighten others. It can include teasing, taunting, use of hurtful nicknames, physical violence, or social exclusion or isolation. 2. Psychological violence includes verbal and emotional abuse and psychological punishment. It can take the form of isolating, rejecting, ignoring, spreading rumors, making up lies, name-calling, insults, ridicule, humiliation, and threats. 3. Sexual violence includes intimidation of a sexual nature, sexual harassment, unwanted touching, sexual coercion, and sexual assault. It can take the form of sexualized comments or talking or sharing inappropriate pictures, improper or inappropriate touching or forcing someone to have sex. It can affect children of all genders. Different forms of GBV can interconnect and can co-occur. Research has shown that girls are more likely to face psychological harassment, cyberbullying, sexual violence, and harassment, while boys face higher rates of corporal punishment and are expected to tolerate it like a man. To understand the 3 forms of school-related gender-based violence, let us look at some news reports and reflect on what happens in our schools. Have we noticed but ignored SRGBV in our school? A study by the Ministry of Women and Child Development in 13 different states in 2007 found that 50% of the children had faced emotional abuse and 69% had been subjected to physical abuse. A study conducted by the National Commission for Protection of Children's Rights in 2009 and 2010 found that corporal punishment was nearly universal in schools. Out of the total of 6,632 children across 7 states, only 9 children reported not having had received any kind of punishment, defined as getting beaten by a cane, being slapped on the cheeks, being hit on the back, or being boxed on the ears. Boys tend to face physical violence more than girls. They are targeted by classmates or older boys. It is often accompanied with verbal threats, taunts, and humiliating acts. The Supreme Court, in a judgment delivered on 1 December 2000, directed the state to ensure that children are not subjected to corporal punishment in schools and they receive education in an environment of freedom and dignity, free from fear. However, social norms allow it to continue. A large number of teachers, parents, and family members use this form of physical violence to control or discipline children. Older siblings or students use it on younger children, and the cycle continues. Bullying could be triggered by any form of difference, caste or socio-economic status, appearance, disability, level of performance in academics or sports, gender identity, or sexual orientation. We often hear about cases where students have been molested and sexually harassed by peers or school staff. Obscene talk or being shown inappropriate videos or pictures is commonly reported. Disability and other forms of disadvantage, such as economic, caste, poverty, or lack of education, make children specially vulnerable to and at risk of gender-based violence. Children with disabilities are victimized by bullying at a much higher rate than their peers without disabilities. Students coming from lower socioeconomic strata face higher risk of being subjected to violence. Similarly, children with different sexual orientation or gender identities are often bullied and taunted by their peers and adults alike. Understanding and awareness about the issues of sexual minorities is limited, and some organizations are trying to raise awareness among the public. The Global Youth Online Behavior Survey conducted by Microsoft ranked India third in cyberbullying. Incidents include children whose morphed pictures were uploaded on the internet, hate mails, fake profiles, and bullying of top performers to ruin their performance. For example, a 24-year-old youth was arrested in Maharashtra for cyberbullying a 13-year-old girl by sending her obscene videos. The youth had created a fake account on social media by posing as a girl and had sent a friend request to the minor girl. After she accepted his request, he started sending her obscene videos. Still posing as a girl, he tricked her into meeting him. When she met up, the girl realized that he had laid a trap. As we have seen from the news reports, the root causes of SRGBV are 1. Social norms which give authority and power to some adults, like teachers, supervisors, and parents, to teach, discipline, and control children. This authority and power is often misused in the form of physical and emotional violence against children. Senior students may also use this to bully and harass younger students. Examples are when we are told, respect your elders, where respect means to obey, do not speak when elders are speaking. Speak and behave according to your status. 2. Gender inequality, which is about treating different genders unequally because of biased thinking about gender identities and roles. It is also about using violence to punish anybody who doesn't fit into these norms. Beliefs like men should earn, women should look after the home, a transgender child should not study in regular schools are examples of gender discrimination. 3. External factors include conflict in the surroundings, lack of infrastructure like separate toilets for girls and boys, income inequality, lack of resources, and inadequate grievance redressal or reporting systems. Lack of penalty or punishment makes the perpetrator feel bold and he or she carries on with the violence. The target, that is the victim, feels helpless and worried about being blamed and shamed, while the perpetrator walks away free. Social media also enables violence on the internet, WhatsApp, Facebook, etc., that are hard for the police to monitor and regulate. There are multiple factors that make students vulnerable to SRGBV. 1. At the individual level, students between ages 5 to 12 years, children with disabilities, and those who lack awareness of their rights are often more vulnerable. 2. At the family level, persistent male-dominated values, high levels of gender inequality, unequal status of the girl child, alcoholism, tolerance of sexual, emotional and physical violence, and lack of awareness of children's rights are risk factors. 3. At the school level, lack of awareness of SRGBV among students and staff, inadequate implementation of code of conduct, disciplinary methods that use physical violence, insufficient training of teachers, lack of syllabus that prevent violence and promote gender equality, increase students' vulnerability to school-related gender-based violence. 4. At the community level, the risk factors are inadequate implementation of laws and policies that protect children from violence, lack of coordination between education, law enforcement, and healthcare services and other organizations working for child rights and protection. The consequences of SRGBV can go beyond the individual, targeted, and also affect the community at large. The impact of SRGBV may be on the child's educational outcomes such as 1. Lack of concentration, inability to study, falling grades, disruptive behaviors, absenteeism or dropping out of school. Or 2. On the child's mental health, resulting in anxiety, depression, uncontrollable anger, shame, low self-esteem, suicidal or self-harm tendencies, dissociation and loss of memory, drug and alcohol abuse. Or 3. On the child's physical health, resulting in bruises, burns, fractures, eating disorders, substance abuse, unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted infections including HIV, and risky sexual behavior. SRGBV can also result in violent behaviors including bullying, sexual harassment, intimate partner violence, and continued violence through generations. What is the magnitude of SRGBV? An estimated 246 million children experience violence in and around school every year, and its impact causes compromised attendance, lower academic results, and higher dropout rates. While school-related gender-based violence or SRGBV affects all children, girls are particularly vulnerable. Let us understand how serious this problem is. By looking at some global data on SRGBV, data shows that bullying is the most prevalent form of violence in schools, affecting more than 1 in 3 students between the ages of 13 and 15 years worldwide. Cyberbullying often overlaps with school bullying and is a growing concern. A study of 20,426 US high school students found that 60% of cyberbullying victims were also bullied at school. It also found that girls were more likely than boys to report being victims of cyberbullying. Corporal punishment is the most widely reported form of SRGBV in our region. More than 80% of students in some countries suffer corporal punishment at school under the guise of disciplining. Half of all children worldwide live in countries with no legal protection from corporal punishment. Around 120 million girls, 1 in 10, under the age of 20 worldwide, have reported experiencing sexual violence. Marginalized groups are at increased risk. In a survey of 3,706 primary school students from Uganda, 24% of 11 to 14-year-old girls with disabilities reported sexual violence at school compared to 12% of non-disabled girls. Homophobic bullying is one of the most common forms of bullying. Studies by UNESCO 2012A-2014 found the rate of bullying ranging from 55% to 90% across Chile, Mexico, Peru, Thailand and UK. In India, a study found that 8% of transgender persons had been unfairly removed from educational settings. Transgender persons complained that they suffered discrimination and exclusion among their peers and that their teachers did not acknowledge their gender. What are the types of violence faced by students? In 2016, UNESCO conducted a qualitative and quantitative study among secondary and higher secondary school students in Bihar and Delhi to understand the magnitude, nature, and different forms of SRGBV. The study was conducted among 768 students in Bihar and 591 students in Delhi in both government and private schools. The study highlighted that 83 to 92% of students faced emotional or psychological violence. Physical violence was a close second across schools at 77 to 83%. 40% of students reported feeling unsafe in their schools. 30% reported being subjected to corporal punishment by teachers. Sexual violence reported by students seems to be more in Delhi, that is 20%, compared to Bihar, that is 14%. Reporting of SRGBV by students. The research highlighted that students are reluctant to report incidents of violence they experienced. At 18 to 22%, the overall percentage of reporting to parents was higher than that of reporting to school authorities, which was just 5 to 14%. 22% of the boys and 18% of girls in Delhi and Bihar reported SRGBV to parents. Girls preferred informing their mothers than their fathers. More rural students reported SRGBV to their parents than urban students. Fear of being blamed prevents students from reporting such incidents to their parents. Only 8 to 14% of the boys and just 5% of girls in Bihar reported such experiences to school authorities. Low reporting to school authorities can be attributed to the fear of getting rusticated or getting reprimanded and shamed. These data points are causes for concern because students need to feel confident about reporting or taking action for their own safety. An open environment needs to be created in schools so that students can report such instances either in person or by other means, like a complaint box or email or SMS to the principal. How did students respond to violence? The study informs us about students and adults' responses as well as the perpetrators of SRGBV. In school, it included fellow students and teaching and non-teaching staff. At times, outsiders were reported to enter schools to rob or snatch things from students. In Delhi, violence outside schools was mostly by unknown men or boys in case of boy victims, while girls faced it from known men or boys from the neighborhood. In Bihar, students reported SRGBV perpetrators as fellow students from the same school. Common hurtful acts committed by students were 1. Beating, hitting, kicking or shoving a student or pulling his or her hair. 2. Hitting a student with scale or duster or heavy objects, etc. 3. Ignoring a student. 5% boys and 2% girls in Delhi and 2% boys and 1% girls in Bihar reported committing sexual crimes against fellow students. Let us now look at the responses of the victims, school authorities and parents to incidents of SRGBV. 24% of students in Delhi and 30% of students in Bihar reported facing SRGBV in 6 months preceding the study. Response of students. In Delhi, 44% of the students tried to stop the violence, 28% sought help from the students nearby, 38% complained to their teachers, and 25% of the students reported to their parents. In Bihar, 38% of the students tried to stop the violence, 18% sought help from students nearby, 29% complained to their teachers, and 26% reported to their parents. No action was taken by 13% of students in Bihar and 21% of students in Delhi. When the students faced sexual violence, 50 to 60% reported it to school authorities. In Delhi, half of the students and more boys than girls said they informed teachers or the principal. In Bihar, 60% of the students said that they informed teachers or the principal about these incidents. This was reported more by boys and rural students. In Delhi, the action taken by teachers or the principal included suspending or punishing the perpetrator and informing police or counsellor. In Bihar, the action taken by teachers or the principal was to give a warning and punishment to the perpetrator. In both states, students reported being blamed for the incident. 10% of students reported that no action was taken, while 5% did not know about the action taken. About 20% of students reported SRGBV acts committed by teacher or school staff to parents. 28% of these students in Delhi and 10% of these students in Bihar mentioned that nothing was done. 23% of these students in Delhi and less than 10% of these students in Bihar reported that the parents blamed them. Actions taken by parents in Delhi include parents talked to teacher or staff 27% and parents reported the matter to school 25%. Actions taken in Bihar include parents talked to teacher or staff 53%, parents informed the matter to school 29%, and parents reported to police, authority or committee 23%. Students need to feel supported when they report SRGBV either to school authorities or to parents, and they need to know that appropriate action will be taken against the perpetrator. Why should prevention of SRGBV begin with schools? This is because education helps development of societies. The international community agrees that learning should include a focus on values, attitudes and behaviors that enable individuals to live together in a world that is diverse and plural. Thus, our intervention in schools needs to be guided by a theory of change. A theory of change considers the desired outcomes and then considers what the program needs to do to reach these outcomes. Learning activities need to first establish concepts and provide knowledge. Teachers can then encourage and motivate students to take action through role modeling and practicing the values talked about. This in turn would lead to social empowerment, as the students would have been equipped with relevant skills and strategies to bring about change on the ground. Preventing SRGBV is our social and legal responsibility. The role of a teacher is expanding. Apart from transmitting knowledge, we make an essential contribution to the emotional and cognitive development of children. Although some students may experience violence in their homes, we can model constructive, non-violent behaviors and help them develop empathy and peaceful conflict resolution skills. Schools usually pass on gender norms and teachers can work to change negative norms. References: Fraser and Khadija 2015 Global Guidance on Addressing School-Related Gender-Based Violence, UNESCO, Paris. As teachers, we have a crucial role to play in prevention and elimination of SRGBV. We can help build awareness, take preventive action, and make effective interventions when faced with SRGBV in the following ways. 1. Make students our partners in preventing violence by building awareness of their rights. 2. Help them respect each other's personal space and follow personal safety rules. 3. Encourage them to intervene as a proactive, responsible citizen and not to be silent bystanders. 4. Encourage them to support each other and report violation of their rights and safety. 5. Learn and teach violence prevention and conflict resolution skills. 6. Actively address violent acts by students through counseling and effective enforcement of rules. 7. Teach students assertive and respectful communication. 8. Build students' ability to face difficulties and failure through self-esteem development and problem-solving skills, and help them to respond to life's challenges in a positive manner. 9. Build awareness of child helpline number, websites, and reporting mechanisms. Share information about various organizations working in this area, like the Children's Grama Sabhas, Children's Panchayats, Child Rights Clubs, and encourage them to create or participate in such forums. As a teacher, we can be positive role models in many ways. As individuals, we could 1. Actively speak out against violence, support those who have reported cases of violence, and enable access to counseling or reporting services. 2. Use constructive corrective methods that promote self-motivation and self-discipline rather than reward and punishment. 3. Show equal respect when interacting with boys and girls or members of marginalized groups like those with disabilities or sexual, regional, and caste minorities. As a colleague and a member of the school, we could 1. Work together to build the confidence of children about safety in the school. Support the school's efforts through keep supervision, alertness, and sensitivity towards issues that threaten students' safety. 2. Lobby with the school authorities to comply with child safety mechanisms and requirements. Ensure staff interacting with children are appropriately trained and make good use of reporting mechanisms. 3. Network with health providers, police, and community-based organizations that can offer support services for students. Some actions that we should definitely avoid are 1. Use of physical and emotional abuse to discipline children. 2. Blaming children who do report violence. 3. Ignoring an instance of violence against a child. We have multiple opportunities for promoting respect, dignity, and consent among students. We can raise topics like friendship, dignity, and mutual respect with them. Students can be encouraged to think about questions like, who's a true friend? What do I expect from them? What can I do for my friends? How can I support them or intervene? If a friend's wish is conflicting with my values, what do I do? How do I communicate with a dignified way with people so that we maintain respect for each other? Do I feel tempted to make fun of some people, their body shapes, their name or family background? Can I be mindful of my words and actions? Do I focus on person's qualities, behaviors, skills and talents? What do I mean by the word respect? Is it something to be given according to one's age, power, money or position? Do I respect another person's wishes and feelings? What is meant by consent? Is my consent important? Do I respect another person's no? We can treat students with respect, appreciate them, point out their unacceptable behavior while not rejecting or labeling them, and treat them without discrimination. We can ask for their consent and make space for them to express disagreement or difference of opinion without fear of being reprimanded. In this way, we can give them an experience of being respected. They will then find it easy to learn and emulate respectful behavior, not only with us, but with each other and members of their family and society at large. How can we respond to the target of SRGBV? We have to be mindful when responding to the person targeted for SRGBV. In many cases, Victims are unjustly blamed when they report abuse for being in the wrong place, at wrong time, or for being careless, or for having provoked the perpetrator in some way or the other. As a result, they hesitate to report SRGBV. On the other hand, students look upon parents and teachers as their trusted adults who can help them in times of crisis. Here is what we can do to empower them when they report their experiences. Acknowledge their courage and their trust in us. Be empathetic and say, "I'm sorry you had to face this. Thank you for trusting me. It was not your fault." Demonstrate care and say, "I understand. It must have been so difficult for you. I will do all I can to help you." Ask questions out of concern, not curiosity. We can ask questions to gather relevant details, rephrase what was said to indicate that we have understood properly, and empathize and offer our support. In case of sexual crimes, do not promise confidentiality. Under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, every adult who becomes aware of a sexual offence committed against a child, a person below 18 years of age, is required to report to the nearest police station. In such cases, we can say, "In order to help you and to ensure that the perpetrator is stopped, I may have to involve others like your parents or the principal or the police. Such perpetrators harm several children. Because of your courage in reporting this, we will be able to stop him or her." Do not trivialize the situation or ask the student to adjust or make excuses for the perpetrator. Do not blame the person targeted for SRGBV or refuse to support him or her. A part of our responsibility is also speak to the student perpetrator assertively and clearly and ensure he or she does not repeat such behavior. We can 1. Listen attentively to understand his or her perspective about the situation. Inquire about the student's family environment and if he or she is exposed to any domestic violence at home. 2. Acknowledge feelings that the students say led to the violent behavior. Sometimes, children do not know how to express certain feelings except through violence. You can say, "I see." So you feel insulted, frustrated, angry, irritated, or humiliated, and that you led to hit the other person. 3. Show the student a positive image of him or herself, however small it may be. "I have noticed how attentively you listen in class," or "I have heard that you are very helpful to some of your friends." 4. Discuss acceptable behavior. Offer a way out. Suggest amendments the students can make not just with an apology, but by demonstrating a change in behavior. How else could you have expressed your feelings? How do you think you can make amends? 5. Talk about consequences like unfavorable opinions that people may form about us, legal implications or penalties that might have to be enforced. You know, such behavior can get students into real trouble. Our school has zero tolerance to SRGBV. Students can face dismissal, and at times the parents of the other child can even take legal action. Mutually decide on a future course of action that will prevent such episodes and get commitment. So, how do you want to proceed? What steps do you want to take to prevent a recurrence of this? Follow up and review the situation, progress made, any barriers that arose, and offer support. Say, "We shall meet in a week's time and see how you are progressing." Adult perpetrators will have to be reported to the concerned authorities and the law will take its course. We can help students learn to intervene safely and protect others. An incident of SRGBV affects not just the target of abuse, but impacts many other students who may have seen or heard about it. It is therefore important to build the capacity of the entire student community with these messages. Tell students that seeking or offering help in a case of SRGBV can be hard because of the fear of being judged, rejected, not believed, or blamed for intervening or not intervening. But when we ignore violence, the perpetrator interprets our inaction as support, and this encourages him or her to commit further violence. Recognize and acknowledge the students who support each other to stop the violence. Say, it takes a lot of courage to report such incidents. Those who reported will be protected from retaliation. Please come and tell us if this happens. Acknowledge those who witness the violence. Say it is normal to feel scared, angry, disturbed, or unconcerned when we witness such things. You can share these feelings with me or the school counselor or your friend. Encourage your students to help each other and intervene safely when they see someone being targeted for SRGBV. Encourage students to trust and believe the target of abuse. Encourage them to intervene safely by drawing attention. You can say, "What's happening here? Do you need help?" Avoid aggression as it might aggravate the situation instead of resolving it. Encourage students to involve the bystanders and ask them to help. Teach students the 3-step safety protocol of 1. Saying no to the perpetrator, 2. Going away from the place of violence to a safer place, 3. Reporting to a trusted adult to get help. Support students targeted by bullies. Do not tease or shame them. Say if you have been bullied, you may be feeling rejected, humiliated, or alone. It is the bully's shame and blame that he or she has not learned to express anger in a respectful way. Often the victim is isolated by his or her peers or may feel sad and anxious. We can encourage students to be alert for such signs and have the courage to support their friends who may be victims. We can encourage them to see what steps they can take to protect themselves from being bullied again. They can discuss and take the help of their teachers, counselors, and parents. How can we respond as a community? We can use a holistic approach to resolve such incidents and involve the students, school staff, parents, and the community. Because the causes of violence in schools are many, stopping violence in schools requires a variety of actions, engaging all members of the school's community. All of us, parents, social workers, counselors, doctors, police, community leaders, and institutions must work side by side with students and administrators to create safe spaces for children in and around schools. Restorative justice is an approach that focuses on the needs of the victims and the offenders, as well as the involved community. Members of a community who have received training in restorative justice can be appointed to facilitate this process. The target of abuse and their family members are given space to speak about how they have been harmed and how they would like to be compensated. The offenders are encouraged to take responsibility of their actions, to repair the harm they have done by apologizing, returning stolen property, or doing community service. In addition, this approach aims to help the offender to avoid future offenses. Several laws and organizations help protect children's right to safety and dignity. The most useful of them are Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, POCSO. This act is gender neutral. Every child under 18 years of age is protected under this act. The accused is presumed to be guilty and has to prove that he or she did not commit the crime. The child need not to go to a police station at all. Any adult, including teachers and doctors, who is told or gets to know about a child being sexually abused is required by POCSO law to report it to the nearest police station. It also mandates child-friendly procedures from filing of report to trial in court. Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act to ensure that children are not employed in hazardous occupations. The Prohibition of Child Marriage Act prohibits marriage of girls under 18 years of age and boys under 21. The NCPCR, National Commission for Protection of Children's Rights, is a governmental agency that inquires into complaints of violation of child rights. They have initiated an e-box to receive complaints of child sexual abuse. Juvenile Justice Act covers children who are in conflict with law. Childline, a 24/7 telephonic helpline, is available in several cities and towns across India. Children can dial the 1098, that is 1098 number, and report their grievance. The Childline services will mobilize support for the child in distress. Listed on this slide are some of the references, toolkits and systems that can help us prevent SRGBV in our schools. Ensuring all children and young people have access to safe, inclusive, health-promoting learning environments is a strategic priority for UNESCO. The organization works towards eliminating school violence and bullying, including school-related gender-based violence, and preventing health and gender-related discrimination towards learners and educators. Moreover, UNESCO contributes to the measure of progress towards Target 4A of Sustainable Development Goal 4 on education, which focuses on the provision of safe and non-violent learning environments for all children and adolescents. Thank you. For more information, please contact UNESCO.